A report has come out regarding the future of Jakob Poeltl with the Toronto Raptors, and it should make some Raptors fans excited, as he's been a big plus for this team ever since he's been acquired at the deadline, and there were some concerns given the fact he could become an unrestricted free agent this summer. So we'll discuss all of that, as well as a former Toronto Raptor and Goran Dragic is out here with a new report that has come out looking a little bit foolish given some career decisions he's made in recent seasons. So we'll discuss that, as well as a guy that's been a high-profile player on the Toronto Raptors trade radar is likely going to get dealt this summer. So we'll break all of that down and more in this video. But before we dive in the first topic of discussion, as a lot of people have known, we've been supported by CoolBet. CoolBet's been sponsoring the podcast for the past couple of months, and we have some big news regarding that. Now, we had a giveaway upon launch with CoolBet, and we have a lot of stuff we plan to give to you guys in the next few weeks with our CoolBet partnership. So we have got tickets to give away for the Toronto Raptors Chicago Bulls game on February 28th. So if you see the Google form down below, if you sign up for CoolBet, take a screenshot of your sign up and then enter your name as well as email and the screenshot that proves you signed up for CoolBet. You'll be entered to get two free tickets to the Toronto Raptors Chicago Bulls game on February 28th. And this also applies to anyone that signed up in the past. So if you didn't end up getting those Raptors Lakers tickets, then you're still entered for these draws. But if you sign up for CoolBet down below, you can get that, as well as pretty well in every video we have until we run out. We got a lot of stuff from CoolBet. We'll be giving away these hats, nice warm fuzzy hats, some free t-shirts, as well as some $50 gift cards to if you're interested in sports betting, right, use on the CoolBet app. And it's not something where you got to match the money or something like that, where you got to put your money in and then it sort of matches with these gift cards. No, it's a free $50 bet that you don't even have to put your credit card in, and then you can just start betting on games risk-free. So shout out to CoolBet for supporting the podcast. Again, they're a sportsbook regulated in Ontario, available all across Canada, and they're going to be giving some free stuff away to you guys, including hoodies like this. We're going to be giving away stuff like this as well. So, lots of giveaways, so there's lots of reasons to sign up down below, right? So shout out to CoolBet for supporting the podcast, and good luck in potentially winning all this free stuff. But we got some news to dive into, and the first thing we're taking a look at is the Toronto Raptors likely signing Jakob Poeltl long-term. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is some good news for the Toronto Raptors that has come out from a report from Yahoo Sports, as well as a report from SpursTalk.com, as Toronto Raptors obviously acquired Jakob Poeltl at the trade deadline, but there was a little bit of concern amongst the Toronto Raptors fan base, as we have Fred VanVleet as an unrestricted free agent, Gary Trent Jr. as an unrestricted free agent, and Jakob Poeltl is also a guy that could leave for nothing this offseason, as he's an unrestricted free agent potentially this offseason as well. But the first report we'll take a look at is coming from Jake Fisher, who basically broke down that Poeltl has made an obvious upgrade for the Toronto Raptors front court, and the Raptors look to make another late season surge in the Eastern Conference standings that they accomplished a year ago. But Poeltl will become an unrestricted free agent, as we just discussed, in June, but league personnel expect Toronto will move to re-sign the 27-year-old to a 4-year contract that he covets. This is the type of tinkering that doesn't exactly spell rebuild. So then they go on to discuss about Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr., our guards that are expected to be free agents as well this offseason. And the Raptors, talk about potentially sign-in trades and stuff that could go down, and how OG Anunoby is likely the guy that the Raptors have had a bunch of trade talks regarding, if they are trying to make moves to open up cap space for the future. So first things first, it looks like the Toronto Raptors aren't going to try to be cheap, try to just, take Jakob Poeltl in and have him on a, 1-year deal, shake things up for this season and go in a different direction, right? MLSE, the Toronto Raptors organization, according to league personnel, will be willing to give him a 4-year contract that he covets. So we also have an indication in terms of what Jakob Poeltl is looking to make, and other reports have indicated, around the $20 million, a little bit above that per year range for Jakob Poeltl, which is an extremely reasonable salary when you consider the stats that he's been putting up this entire season in general. I mean, 12.2 points per game, 9 rebounds, 3 assists. Expect those numbers to go up. 1.2 blocks a night, and is really efficient from around the rim, right? That's essentially market value for a guy that does what Jakob Poeltl does and is an elite defender. So there's that, as well as the fact that he's been an absolute monster for the Toronto Raptors. I mean, he had that game against the Orlando Magic where he had 30 30 points, 6 blocks, right? We talked about in that post-game reaction, but it's also the highest field goal percentage recorded by a player in a 30-point game with 0 free throw attempts in NBA history. So a little bit of a cherry-pick stat, but if you're breaking NBA history, if you're doing legendary stuff like that, we're bringing it up. And also, he's the second player in Raptors history to record a 30-point and 5-block stat line in a game. So he's out here breaking records already with the Toronto Raptors, and it's leading to increased level of production for the overall team as well. As you can look at the stats here, I won't break down all the decimal numbers and stuff, but our offensive rating, defensive rating, effective field goal percentage, as well as opponents' effective field goal percentage, those numbers all swing in the Raptors' favor dramatically. Substantially, with Jakob Poeltl on the court and Jakob Poeltl off the court. And a part of that's just having an actual center to run out, but it's also part Jakob Poeltl just being an impactful player out there on the basketball court. So he's been a great fit with this team. And in other news, because we expected the Toronto Raptors, so they're making this trade. They trade away a first-round pick for next season, right? Lottery or a top 6 protected, of course, but they trade him away. We expect the Raptors to sort of want to keep him around. But in bigger news, Jakob Poeltl, apparently he wasn't caught off guard, because there was some reservations, and there has been a lot of Raptors fans, especially with Jakob Poeltl's number selection for this season. For people that don't know, Jakob Poeltl's wearing the number 19. Obviously, that's the year the Toronto Raptors won a championship, and the reason we won the championship is because we traded away Jakob Poeltl as well as DeMar DeRozan in that deal. We trade him away for the 2018-2019 season, so it's not exactly subtle. It might be a little bit of over-reading into it, but it just seems like a little toy with that Jakob Poeltl has, picking that number. And when he was asked about the number, he also said it's private, it's personal or something. So maybe it's motivation. Some people have also said maybe it's the contract. He's sort of expecting the minimum contract. He's hoping to get this off season, but I digress on that. Some people weren't sure. If you get traded from a team, how are you feeling about that squad? But a report coming out from SpursTalk.com indicates that the San Antonio Spurs gave Jakob Poeltl the ability to sort of list his preferred destinations ahead of this year's trade deadline if he were to get dealt from the Spurs, and obviously he did. And apparently the team that was at the top of the list, even though we traded him away in 2019, was the Toronto Raptors. So he wanted to come back. He had that familiarity with his former Raptors teammates, now current Raptors teammates, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, those dudes there, and it's a good organization, right? There's also a big need for him at the center spot there in Toronto, so he wanted to come back. He covets a 4-year contract that the Raptors are likely going to give to him, so obviously things could spiral out of control. You can't predict what's going to happen in the next few months, but all things point to Jakob Poeltl coming back with the Toronto Raptors. Now, that'll lead to other decisions that'll have to be made regarding the cap situation for Toronto in the future, but regardless of all that, sign Jakob Poeltl first and then figure it out from there. So good news there on that front for Jakob Poeltl. And good news also for petty Toronto Raptors fans, which I proudly say I am, as a report has come out regarding Goran Dragic potentially getting waived from the Chicago Bulls. Now, Goran Dragic is a guy, he's an NBA veteran, and he was acquired by the Toronto Raptors last season in the Kyle Lowry trade. So he traded away Kyle Lowry, acquired Precious Achiuwa, as well as Goran Dragic. Now, immediately things got off on bad terms, as Dragic essentially said in an interview that he has higher aspirations than the Toronto Raptors. He doesn't want to play for Toronto. He has higher aspirations. He wants to go to a different team. And obviously the Raptors are sort of young. We're coming off that Tampa tank year. But we had a really good season that year. And Dragic, to his credit, came in, was professional when he was here. He said all the right things except for that sort of media interview while he was with the team. But then the Raptors essentially granted him an absence, even though we definitely could have used a player like Dragic, especially where Delano Banton cooled off from his hot start to the season. We let him go home to spend time with his family or personal issues or whatever sort of title we gave to it. But then things started to get ugly again, as Dragic was seen courtside while he was supposed to be with, away for personal reasons, back with his family and stuff. He was seen courtside watching Miami Heat games, right? Just sitting courtside in the stadium while the Raptors sort of, his team that he's getting paid $19 million for, right? He's just not there with that team, and he's shown practicing in the Miami Heat's practice facility. So the dude is just a bad look, right? If you're supposed to be away, at least keep up the facade. Now, I wasn't that grilling on Goran Dragic there. It is what it is. Let him be. A lot of Raptors fans are disappointed with that. But then the Toronto Raptors. So then he signed with the Brooklyn Nets, which was really confusing because the Nets had a worse record than Toronto last season, right? Given the point that he signed, they got knocked out essentially at the same rate as the Raptors, and the Raptors dealt with a bunch of injuries. So Dragic didn't really go to a team with higher aspirations or whatever, even though they did have KD and Kyrie at the time. So maybe there's more championship potential. But it got knocked out at the same point, and when Toronto was knocked out of the playoffs, he was out here posting tweets, roasting his former teammates, roasting his former organization, crying, laughing emojis, going at people in the comment section, acting like a 15-year-old Twitter troll. Like, out here looking foolish, looking stupid. And now, as I go on a little Goran Dragic tirade, I gave the whole summary there. He's out here looking foolish right now, especially those higher aspiration comments, as this season he signed with the Chicago Bulls, who, again, higher aspirations, right? Yeah, the Chicago Bulls, right? The Bulls don't add Westbrook, John Wall, or Patrick Beverley are names to keep in mind. And if the Bulls will need to waive a player to create a roster spot, and their current focus calls into question the future of Goran Dragic. So this report ends up going on to say that Dragic, if the Bulls, which it's highly reported, are going to bring in a new point guard, bring in another guy to sort of bolster their bench to make a little playoff push, if they do that, Goran Dragic will be waived. So not only this guy can't latch on to a better team, right? The Dallas Mavericks didn't even want to. They said, hey, you'll be an insurance dude that might play once every 5 nights or something. We'll bring you in because you're played on the national team with Luka Doncic, but they didn't even really want him for a consistent role. And now the Chicago Bulls, who are barely, I don't even know if they're ahead of the Toronto Raptors at this point, but right in the same level of mix, and the Raptors have been bad this season, right? Relative to where our expectations are, right? He's likely going to get waived from that roster. So, while you hate to see a guy, Goran Dragic has made his money. He's not some guy that's scrambling for cash or whatever, but given how sour things ended with the Toronto Raptors, I'm petty. I'm kind of happy to see him potentially get waived. So there's all of that. But the next thing we're taking a look at is Ben Simmons likely getting traded this summer. And this is interesting because Ben Simmons, he's been tied to the Toronto Raptors in recent seasons, right? A couple off seasons ago when the Sixers drama went down, right? The Raptors were one of the top teams in terms of potentially acquiring Ben Simmons, but obviously we weren't able to meet Philadelphia's ridiculous asking prices, but got traded to Brooklyn. And then we heard rumblings about it, even though Ben Simmons has been trash, like utter garbage this year, right? Like 7 points per game, at least on the box score. Right? Well, yeah, and on the eye test too. 7 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, which is solid. His defense is kind of fallen off, right? But doesn't shoot threes, isn't great effective, in terms of putting the ball in the hoop, isn't the same player he was in Philadelphia. Even with all that said, and the heck ton money he's making, right? The Raptors are still rumored to potentially acquire him. And now a report has come out essentially indicating that the Ben Simmons is Nets are widely expected to gauge trade market during the offseason. And further went on to say that it's likely he could get dealt from Brooklyn, as their coach basically came out and said he doesn't really fit being played as a big man and he doesn't fit playing as a guard. So his minutes are going to be regressed, especially with the deep team that they now have down there in Brooklyn. So I don't know. Could the Raptors buy low? Do you think they should go after him this offseason, have a little resurgence of his career? Let me know in the comment section below. The final thing to take a look at is a fun little video coming out regarding Jakob Poeltl mentoring some young guys in the Toronto Raptors, specifically Christian Koloko. It's not the greatest quality, but I saw this pop up. Just wanted to show it here. Probably could have displayed this in the Jakob Poeltl segment, but this is a big part of why you want to keep Jakob Poeltl around, because he's out here being able to mentor the guys on the bench. Obviously, I'm sure this is what vets be doing 24/7, but the Raptors never really had a big man on the roster mentor guys like Precious Achiuwa, Christian Koloko. Yes, Siakam certainly is a big man, but he's more of a wing, right? He's not out there, playing that low block, chilling in the dunker the entire possession that a guy like Koloko or Precious might be more suited to doing. So it's nice just having a veteran that's in there as well. The video got cut off a little bit earlier, but you can see the coaches have a look over to see what Jakob Poeltl's saying. So hopefully this man stays around, and lots of news with the Toronto Raptors. So subscribe to Raptors Digest if you want to stay up to date on all that, and definitely use the sign up form down below to sign up for CoolBet and get yourself some of this merch. Get yourself a potential at winning those Toronto Raptors, Chicago Bulls tickets. $50. I'm plugging this stuff on the vids, so we're giving it all away to you guys. But anyways, enough of me rambling. You guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.